I'm not sure it was faith in the beginning. And
Hmm.
it was just something that happened, like people have a near death experience and then they gain more information. It was kind of like that. But I realized years later that it is faith. It's my faith that, darn it, that information is there. And if I can reach to your mother or your father or your loved one, so can you.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the Modern Sage Podcast, and I'm Leah Guy, your host. As always, I'm thrilled that you're here. We have another fantastic episode for you today. And before I introduce our special guest, just a few reminders. One, you can watch these podcasts on my YouTube channel. We're trying to reinvigorate the YouTube channel. So please take a look over there, especially if you connect with someone you feel interested in. It's always nice to have a visual to go with that. And all of the show notes will also be on YouTube. Secondly, follow me on social media at Leah Guy Live on Instagram and Facebook, and recently on TikTok, where you can find promos and information about these podcasts, as well as my upcoming events, information, workshops, retreats, and more. And always visit my website, leahguy.com, for more information and the latest news there. Now, today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, mediumship. And I know I've had a couple of different readers on the show in the past last year, but today I'm really excited because one, I resonate with this person very much. We've never met each other before, but I think we have a lot in common. And I'm interested to dive deeper and to help everyone understand a little bit more of what's on the other side, what is possible, especially for people who are grieving, who are challenged with doubt about the separation and maybe just need a little heartfelt inspiration right now. And today we have Alaine Portner, and she is a medium and a mindfulness expert. She travels around now and she teaches and she does her mediumship work for people in small groups and individually and at events and retreats as well. And so, Alaine, I'm so happy that you're here, and thank you for being on the show.
I'm honored to be here.
Oh, thank you. You live in New Jersey, right?
Part time.
Sometimes. Okay. You're from New Jersey.
That's better.
Okay. From New Jersey. I'm not from here, but I live here. You have practiced and taught yoga for many years.
Very
Yes.
true.
Yes. Of course, you're a medium. And you love helping other people find the light within them, inspiration, resources, all kinds of things through modalities of mindfulness, meditation, and spiritual teachings, and so forth. And so, for that, right away, we're best friends. We're just
Yes, that's very, very true. And as you're introducing me and I'm looking at you, I feel like the light is there. And why are we here? And for
mm,
some of us, if we can be ambassadors to using this famous word right now about helping others become awake, awake to what? The consciousness of our universe, then we have a lot in common. And lots of people do it in different ways. And I think you host a lot of people who do have different styles. And that's the point.
yeah.
Everybody has a unique way of doing that with either one person in a relationship or lots of people because of the teachings. And I do believe that it's incredibly purposeful that we have these conversations, that we share them, that we do our work with authenticity and intent. And you're right. I light up when you say that I do that because that is a purpose and
Yeah.
intention of helping others for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm glad that you're here, and I know that I've read your book or most of your book, and I've looked into your work, and I know that you're helping people. And sometimes, as healers, we need to be reminded of what we're doing. I can very easily go to the couch, watch Netflix, and eat some popcorn or whatever, and kind of forget who I am, or what I'm doing and why. And so we need to be reminded that, and not just for healers, but also for everyone in our lives, how we're touching and connecting with people and making difference in people's lives and just sharing this experience together. So talking about this experience of being human, you're in the business of sharing with people what it is to not be in this human form and to send messages to people from the other side. I don't know if you know this about me, but I also practice some mediumship in my work, but it's not exclusively what I do. But in my healing sessions and in my readings and so forth, that seems to be the more natural way for me to connect in and share information as well. But I haven't honed my craft probably as much as you. And I certainly want to talk about and hear that from you today. So before we talk about how you do what you do and examples of what you've done and your book and everything, can you share with people how you believe that you know that there is life after death?
Yeah, that's a great, beautiful question, right?
Yes.
And I think that just being human, it addresses the fear that we all share, which is dying. That this life, when you fall in love with the life, you fear that it will be an afterlife, but you're not quite sure what that looks like. And probably because of the 13,000 readings, all different shapes and sizes, and spirits on the other side, and people here who want to know, I guess that it has become incredible faith because I'm not sure it was faith in the beginning. And
Mhm.
it was just something that happened, like people have a near death experience and then they gain more information. It was kind of like that. But I realized years later that it is faith. It's my faith that, darn it, that information is there. And if I can reach to your mother or your father or your loved one, so can you.
Yes.
So my teachings are all about teaching and empowering other people to have that same faith that
Mhm.
they are hearing, sensing, and knowing. And because I can achieve that, let's say at a higher frequency, for you, well, I'm still human. So if I can do it for you, you can do it for you. And I think that's the premise of my teaching. So I think in helping other people, I actually help them help themselves in knowing that they can achieve those answers,
Yeah.
and not to the level and the frequency that I can because I'm not emotionally attached to whatever their situations are. I understand that too. So this is
Yeah.
why you and I are talking, right? We need other people to help us, if even if we're vibrating at a different frequency. And so the point is that we are all connected and we can all help each other at different phases in our lives and different spiritual awareness and consciousness, or just waking up to a universal vibe for some people.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, I remember when I first started channeling, and the biggest challenge was getting out of my own way and being brave enough to say what I was seeing, feeling, sensing, and the information that was downloading. And I think for many people the ego part of us, the expectations, the desires, the grief, the anger, all the things that are in the way get in the way of us trusting the information that's coming in. And so that does take a lot of practice and not work necessarily, but trust, faith, and just kind of delivering what we hear, or see, or smell, or taste, or feel,
No,
right?
you're saying it exactly right, because we do get in our own way. And what's interesting, as I'm listening to you recite the challenges, I acknowledge that through my trainings, that was just myself to myself and my relationship with the
Mm,
universe, that I had to completely release my own story.
yes.
Right? We all have stories. We're all
Yes.
related to people. We all have families. We all have dysfunction, whether it's eating or in the family, or like we're all just unique. I tend to look at it that way. It's not really dysfunction. It's just the synchronicities that are in your life. And I realize then that the less attached I am to things that are going on in my life and watching my emotional balances, then I could be a clean slate for information to come through. But
Mhm.
that's a really hard thing to do for the average person, right? Because we kind of fall in love with our own stories, or we get
Get
resentful of our
addicted to
stories.
them. Yes.
Yeah, addicted to them. Great word. Great.
Yes.
And so I learned early on, like you were saying, you get in your own way, but it's really only you that can get in your way. So learn how to get out of the way
Right.
mindfully, right? I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's saying the same thing, but so you can be that vessel and vehicle for others to make those connections, because they would be able to do that more if they weren't in their own story as well. So
Yes.
this is like the higher consciousness of what's really going on. And here's the other huge, I call them love bombs, which is that when we're all looking for help, even to get out of our own story, like with a therapist or with a friend trying to, you know, reiterate the story, which is something you really don't want to do because that gives it more power, right? But when we understand that these things can get in the way, but we realize that there is so much help and guidance on the other side, then we really do have to surrender and let those voices or guidance or signs come in to know that love is eternal.
Yeah.
And so are we as souls, that that's what I want in my life, to deal with the people that are here in it, right?
Yeah. Right.
So it's
Yeah.
just yeah, you understand.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and open up, because this is what everyone wants to know about and understand
Sure.
and get inspiration about is the people on the other side. What are they? What are they? Who are they? What form are they? How do they communicate with us? How is it up there or over there or around us? What is their experience, and what confirmations do you have about that? Now, before you share with us, I just want to tell people Alaine's book is Medical Memoirs, which is really a great read. It's my kind of read because I like storytelling. And so there's a lot of different examples of stories and readings that you've done in there. Um, and evidential, information to show that there's no other way that you can know what you know. But explain in general, for a person who maybe hasn't had a reading or is maybe still doubtful, how do you envision the other side when you communicate? What do you see, and how do you envision that, how that works up there, over there?
Right. So I think you're asking actually two things, like what goes on over there and how can we help others to really know that, right? So I just went back into my archives of my mind, and you reminded me of when I first started this. And for some reason, I'm a really polite medium. So I don't provide information unless I get a confirmation from somebody. Like I don't walk around town giving people readings. I'm not like that, you know?
Yeah.
And so what happens is that I'm so polite that in the beginning, it was so fascinating to me that I didn't ask them questions of like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you
Yeah.
doing tomorrow? What are you doing over there? So I didn't even ask them questions. And over time, they provided some of those answers based upon who they were talking to. So I wanted to find out what it is. And some of the answers that I received are, you asked if they're, what are the people on the other? I don't consider them people. To
Mhm.
me, it is completely soul consciousness, that which is residing within ourselves now. And it is just a consciousness. And people get caught up in connecting to their loved ones based upon sometimes at the end of their life, like what their bodies were going through, obviously illness or death. And so they don't have the bodies any longer. So we have to get kind of those images out of our minds. And
Yeah.
they really try and help us do that because they want us to understand that they are so much freer than we are in thinking about them, worrying about them. They're fine, we're not.
Right.
So that's one bit conceptually to understand that they are a mass consciousness of soul awareness. I don't know how to say it any other way. So there are no physical parts. They don't have days like we do. They don't have nights like we do. And they connect by pure vibration and pure energy. So they don't have opinions and they don't have judgments. And a lot of people here living are so fearful of what my mother's thinking about me, or
Right.
my father's thinking about me, or my ex-husband, or these types of things. And it is not that. Well, why it isn't that, I don't know, but it has probably something to do with maybe unconditional love.
Yeah.
And they have, yeah, right. And so there's no conditions that can make them happy or sad. It's pure energy. So the vibration that they are emoting, right, is what I catch. And we'll use words together to describe that, to calm the person down for having all of those thoughts, and teaching them that there's no reason to have those types of thoughts. So they are very much available to be around you. And when they do provide testimony to the rooms in which you spend the most time in, like if it's a blue couch with a pillow that says something on it, they'll give you that evidence so that you know that when you're connecting with them in your house, they see you, they're a part of that.
Hmm.
And that's important to know that they have that ability. I also understand two important things here. One is that there is a level of education that does go on the other side, but I think it's speeded light. I think it's like keen awareness or an epiphany, if you will, in the afterlife of how they learn. It's not because of the interaction with other souls. It's not that. We think we're learning from each other, and perhaps we are, but we're wrapped up in energy and bodies. So it's very different. But I would also say to you that what's fascinating is through some readings, I do have souls that are at peace. All of the souls I connect to are at peace. I've never found somebody that isn't.
Mhm.
So when they're at peace, what I find is that they want to ask for forgiveness from some people.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm kind of fascinated by that. And I would like to write a book, of course. But then when I deliver that kind of message to somebody, it's very interesting because they're like, well, I don't know what to do with that. How do I do that? And oh my God, or maybe no.
Mhm. Right.
And I have to go back and retrace my questions and think, why are they doing that? And the lessons that I've learned from them is that they want to um, kind of create better karma. And so that's something for them, not necessarily for us, but it ends up being incredibly beneficial and
Right.
empowering to the person who provides that. We know that. We all do spiritual work where you cut the cords, if you will, right? And so not cutting it in separation, but cut the cord of disdain or detachment or separation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So when I'm hearing you talk about everyone being at peace, okay, so let's assume, well, all the people that you're connecting with that are at peace.
Sure.
I have had the experience, and I wanted to ask you because in your book you talked about an example, I think if I read it correctly, of where either different levels or chambers or pathways or places, and I've had the experience in some of my readings feeling similarly that the soul is at peace, but they're still working on some things, like they're not inactive, they're in a growth place almost, or in a
Right.
transition place or something like that. So what is your interpretation about that when you've experienced people that, or have you experienced people that are in transition or in different places per se, even though it's
Yeah. I think it's really human for us to um, analyze
Mhm.
that there are different levels in the afterlife, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the ego and competitive part of us, right?
Right.
Or religion, because some people say believe go to hell and some people go to heaven.
Right.
I just don't have any of those beliefs because I haven't been told different, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
So, so I don't know that they're quote unquote in different places. But I will tell you that the only thing I've experienced is when somebody is trying to enhance the light to someone in the human form, like I just said about the forgiveness part, I feel like it does something for them. What it does for them is just universally connected. I don't think it's quite personal
Hmm.
to them and their work that they might be doing.
Hmm.
I don't know because I don't think that there's levels of consciousness there. And
Right.
I'll go you one more. I think that's my answer.
Okay.
I'll go you one more. Is that I always wonder about the people that aren't connected to any, like nobody's asking for them, right? Or if you know what
Yeah.
I mean, right? Like
Right.
there's lots of anonymous soul spirits on the other side, and I guess I subscribe to the notion that these conversations, the channelers, the mystics, all of the people that do energy work, it's coming from a place, those on the other side as well, the teamwork that's going on is supporting us as humans and souls to evolve our consciousness. We're using our minds more by having these conversations. We're capable of so much more. And so I believe that there are some that are involved and some that are not. Does that make them superior? I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
have time to think about that,
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
honest, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like when you're trying to connect to somebody, that is beneficial to everyone involved.
I gotcha. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I do. So then to follow that statement, for people who are seeking readings, or to connect with someone, when when they come to the space to have a reading or so forth, and they, for example, want to talk to a specific person, and maybe that person isn't available, but someone else shows up. I've had that experience myself. I'm sure that's happened to you, or I don't know. Can you order the person that you want to do a reading with in, or sometimes they don't come forward so much? Can you speak to that a little bit about?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I can easily tell you, and I wrote it, I think I wrote it in the book because that was a common question, that I never missed anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that because I do groups of 10 people at a time. And obviously, they give me a long list. I say, I take orders, tell me who you want to talk to. And not everybody can come through because of sheer time.
Mm-hmm.
So then I say, okay, we didn't miss them. We just ran out of time. If I had the hour with somebody, then I will get to anybody and everybody that you need to talk to. But I don't prioritize that. You can do that because I think it's an exercise of intention of who you want to speak to.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's for you. But I work for them.
Mm-hmm.
So my point is that I let anybody come through, and sometimes it's somebody that that person doesn't want to talk to, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever can come through will come through, and if it's about timing, and not having like a private situation, you have to accept who comes through. And I will tell you that everybody can be reached. I haven't, so that's just a philosophy. I haven't not been able to get to someone. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there has been times where somebody wants to reach to a relative, and perhaps they had trouble talking, or they were in a coma, or they're shamed or something. And so it kind of takes a while, but it's like a wrench, and you just dance around it until you create enough positive energy for that messaging to come
Mm.
through. I
Yeah.
think it works that way. But the problem is that I think Hollywood or some books indicate that certain people can't come through. Either they passed just the other day and they can't. I don't really believe in that, because that when some people at the time of passing, or let's say the recent past, come to their loved ones in dreams, so they're achievable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think everybody's achievable.
Yeah. Good. Well, for those who may have skipped forward or just tuning in, we're talking about mediumship, talking to people on the other side for purposes of healing and finding connection and resolving sometimes a lot of really difficult life situations. And what we've heard Alaine say so far is that people on the other side, their souls are at peace and they're not in a judgmental, opinionated space to kind of call the shots here, but that they can see what is going on in our lives and only want to have helpful input, I believe. Correct?
Yes, I always say I'm a happy medium because I only deliver happy news. And then the skeptic says, well, do you see it and don't say it? And they come, because that's where their minds are, right? We're skeptical, we're like defensive, I don't know. And I think to myself, wow, I just never want to be in that space of,
Yeah.
well, it's bound to happen bad news, but I don't know what would be bad news. That's how much faith I have. Not that it's not coming through, and not that they don't say things like, look after your brother John because he's needs help right now. They usually go to the people that are needing help, actually. But it's not because of bad news, because I'm not sure what the bad news is. So if you have deep faith in knowing that this is all energy and the afterlife is real, what's bad news? That you reconnect with your loved ones when it's all over?
Right.
I'm that enthusiastic about life, so
Yeah.
we all kind of need to be there.
Yeah, it's really one of my favorite ways to connect, both in the experience of receiving messages and also being part of that with clients and others as well. I remember one time, this was years ago, when I had the Healing Center
Sure.
in Jersey City, and we had a medium there once or twice a month, I forget. But I had my grandfather came in. My grandparents come in very regularly. I mean, they're like, very. I guess they have a lot to say, but I had a session that he essentially coached me through my next business steps
Oh
from
yeah.
point A to point Z. I mean, this reading went on for an hour and a half, and it was just what I should do, what I shouldn't do, who to talk to, what to do, what to think about, all of the things. And I was so eternally grateful, not just to have connection with my grandfather again and that beautiful, loving feeling of being seen, makes me want to cry right now.
Yeah, it's
But
beautiful.
yeah, but to access his wisdom and advice. and it really steered me in a completely different direction than what I was thinking about. That was perfectly orchestrated, um and so I've just had some amazing, wonderful experiences with mediumship, and I know so many people have. There's some mediums that are very general, I think, and I'm not criticizing their skills or mediumship or whatever, but I can see where people go, well, this is general. Of course the person's going to say, I love you, I miss you, I'm okay, whatever. But
Right.
an evidential medium will give information about clothes or physicality or some kind of symptoms or signs that the person will know for sure. Correct? You want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So I wouldn't do this unless I had what I call confirmations or affirmations of people's birth dates, names, dates, initials, symbolic references that they already know. This is
Mhm.
their story. So they have to accept the information. And because they accept it, then they have to accept everything else that's going to come. And sometimes it's not what they want to hear, but it's what they need to hear.
Yeah.
And you're right, there's a lot of guidance provided for jobs, relationships, all of the big questions, yes, but also so specific. I remember one time, and I don't say it that I do this because I don't like saying, oh, I do this, because then
Yeah.
I'm expected for it to be done.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. But I think it was a combination lock. And I was like, wow. It was a woman's ex husband who she couldn't get into, not ex husband, it was her deceased husband, sorry. And she couldn't get into the safe. And
Oh,
didn't he provide her the numbers? And she, emails me back. Oh my God, you can't believe this, because I have everybody record the sessions, because
okay.
sometimes in the moment the person isn't really ready to hear everything, and I say, that's not on me, that's on you. So
Mhm.
record this
Mhm.
and then sit back and listen, because sometimes they're surprised or doubtful or scared of the reading. So their nervous system can handle it better when they listen back and they're like, oh my God, now I know that was my Uncle Ray and I didn't realize that. So that does happen. But the information is a large continuum of what things are going on in your life.
Mhm.
And it can be very helpful. I've
Yeah.
definitely set up a lot of people in business. And just yesterday, there was a woman and her father came in and told her, no, you really do need to go into real estate. And she says, I was questioning that. And the relationship that she's in is not going to go far. And she needs to get out of it in
Yeah.
order to clear her field for what's to come next. But he came right in and said all of that. And it's not a surprise.
Well, so then speak to us about how a soul energy on the other side, or an energy source, can know the future as well as just know us and our past. How can they see the future?
Yeah. So I don't know. Because I'm not them. So
Yeah.
I really don't know how they know, to be
Uh-huh.
honest with you, because I think for me to dissect like time travel and that type of thing is too intense for me,
Yeah.
and
I love
not
that stuff.
yeah, but it's
Yeah.
not my genre, because
Yeah.
I can't wrap my head around it, because
Right.
I've already wrapped my head around this, right? And
Right.
this is so voluminous
Yes.
that I would say to you that when I say something to someone and they really don't understand it, then I would say that's because it's the future and not, so I know that, okay, this is for the future then. So I
Mhm.
understand that part in their communication. But I guess the theories that pertain to, um, multiple quantum physics leaps of time do relate to the other side, because, like I said, they don't have days and nights. So I do believe that they can see, and here's a different word, they can see the energy of something
Mhm.
and knowing the longevity of it, perhaps, as opposed to the psychic prediction that this is not good. Because remember that I said that they don't have judgments
Yeah.
about things, but they will tell you that it is important for you because the love isn't there for you to move on. Like they'll say it in ways that are very loving and supportive,
Yeah.
perhaps the ways they would have said it in life, the
Yes.
same way.
Yeah. Well, so to get a little more into to how this works, mostly just from my interest and
Sure.
conversations I've had, But I think it's really fascinating. So I had on my podcast a neuroscientist who was a wonderful, lovely, brilliant man, and a fascinating podcast. But of course, scientist has a particular kind of way of thinking of how things work and how things are done. I finally got him to admit that he believes ESP is possible. Okay. So I'm only saying that to say there's been times when I, my human self have challenged myself when I'm doing readings to think maybe I'm reading their mind and seeing the image in their memory system of who the person is. So I'm seeing the visual and I'm getting the evidence of the visual and reading their mind. And then, of course, energetically attuning to the situation at hand and then prescribing advice or counsel or words for that kind of through the person. But really, I'm just reading their own mind of what their highest intention is. Does that make sense?
Yes. So are you saying, yes, but let me qualify. Are you saying that, are you asking the question of, are you sure you're reading or channeling as opposed to reading somebody else's mind? Is that what you're saying?
Reading
That,
their mind and their extended field of best case scenario possibility for their higher self, you know, um, but also with the influence of the person, like let's say if it's their grandfather, I'll just use that example again. If their
sure.
grandfather was meaningful, important to them, and they were a business person, right? So I would, as a child, and the imprint that I have of that person, of course, I have his memory and his sight and his sound and his smells and everything in my cellular memory at some level. And then because he is who he is to me, and I look up to that, so I have probably an idea subconsciously or psychically within myself of what he would say or counsel. And then if someone's reading me, perhaps they're reading my mind and seeing him in my field and then tapping into that which I already know, but just confirming it for me through the visual of him. So yes to what you said and a little bit more.
Yeah. So I get it. But a couple, funny responses to that. Number one, I'm not a scientist. Number two, I'm probably more of a mixologist and I create my own cocktail with it, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I've never really analyzed it enough to know, is it this person or is it the soul spirit on the other side?
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess I just have so much faith that I'm speaking from the other side
Yeah.
regardless of what this person needs.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, because I felt like I needed to download anything that's going on with me,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm a blank slate.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really try not to take on somebody's energy, even in thought and body, but they know what they're thinking.
Right.
So that's the way that I see it. That's
Yeah.
my perspective. But I would also say to you at some level, like, I don't care.
Me
Like,
too.
I
That's
don't
exactly what
care.
I was going to say. So just to clarify, I agree with you, but
Okay.
I've only gone through this process kind of. I guess I do this frequently, kind of not to take on their energy, but to put myself in their shoes and what they're experiencing, witnessing, and to just change perspectives and have different. Maybe this is possible. Maybe this is possible. But the bottom line that I came to also was, I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Right. It really doesn't. And I'm not smart enough to understand the dissection of that cellular intelligence or the camaraderie of synchronicity of spirits and souls, one here, one there, what happens in the middle. But the way that if I get to a sticking point, let's say, where it's unclear, but I can feel, I don't know if I feel dissatisfaction or unclarity, let's put it, or not clarity. So when I get to those points, I just stop and I ask for another confirmation,
Mm,
which lets me know. And it's usually that person's birthday or it's the other person's birthday, the soul spirit on the other side, some type of specific information that is true,
hmm
that can't be denied. And then I will provide the answer to their question to make sure that I'm not reading them, I'm reading, I'm channeling the spirit. So
Yeah.
sometimes I guess there's been times where I need to do that to make sure that I'm not overly invested or invested at all in what
Right.
somebody wants to hear. I'm never. never that way.
Yeah.
Other than the generics, like you're speaking of, which is that, are they at peace? I mean, some people come into this like really nervous and scared. They haven't had any experiences in spirituality. And so this is kind of new to them. And so they need to know the generics, which they speak of, but just in the beginning. And we get way past that because I always say it's not really as important. They don't understand this all the time, but it's not less important as to who you're speaking to than it is what they're delivering, what messages they're talking about.
Yeah. Right.
Because that's the nutrition, that's the spiritual education, that's the gem,
Yeah.
the nectar that we talk about, right? That hopefully I can achieve for them.
Right. I think it's particularly challenging for people who have experienced loss by suicide or young children. The times where we think this shouldn't have happened, or a good thing happened to a bad person, or a person took their life. And you can tell us, but what it's like to read for a 5-year-old soul, or a person who's taken their own life. Is it a different experience for you reading those energies?
Yes, and I get chills just use even saying it. So the book, the preface of the book is, yeah, it's about 9/11, but the ultimate intention of the book was channeled by the first child I ever read, because I said that I would do this for spirit when I didn't want to understand about forensic psychic sense, like there was going to be a 9/11 that I saw on 9/9. I am not that kind of person. I'm not fearful. I don't want that. I'm not interested in helping police investigations. I am not that girl.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, so what can I do? And so what I understood is when we were in a Reiki circle healing energy towards New York, because I was in New Jersey at the time, I just started to see everybody's family around them. So I turned off one channel, the forensic psychic sense, which I didn't want, and said, how can I serve my community, which is the greatest question of all mankind? And then I found that I could bring families back together again. So when I realized that I could do that, I then said, I don't know if I could ever go between someone and losing a child. I don't know if I could really be that voice for a child, because I had 3 children of my own, and I just thought it was life out of order, like you said. And a good friend of mine said, could you do this for my aunt and uncle? They're beside themselves. And I just said yes, because she was a good friend. And I said, what do I know? I don't know. Just lead me, tell me. And I did. That child, it changed their lives, which is healthy and good, but it also uh, became the ghostwriter of my book.
Mm.
So their child did. And I thought, well, this is all that I need to learn. And since that time, it is very intense and of course life out of order and doesn't feel okay, even though the children are. That I've gotten so involved with organizations like Helping Parents Heal, which is a huge organization that is made up of multiple thousands of members who have lost children.
Mm.
And in working with them, it's been an unbelievable blessing in my life if I could bring 1 ounce of connectedness between a child and a lost child and and parents, and that's been happening. But it is intense. But something that I didn't want to do
Mhm.
ended up being something that I do quite often because
Interesting.
I see the difference it can make. And what's so fascinating to me is that it brings these parents usually into a different world. And that is perhaps how we're all evolving.
Mhm.
So that child's loss is not in vain.
Yeah.
It's purposeful in a way that can benefit others. And even though all of us would want our children back in our lives, I just see as it evolves our consciousness in a way that supports communication, develops belief systems, reduces anxiety and loneliness, that I'm in. Like, if I could do that for any one person every day, then that's what I'm doing. That's my work.
Yeah. That's great. Well, I'm going to ask you a question that I get asked all the time, which is,
Sure.
does it drain you to do the readings, or do you get energized?
So I always feel that it is a question that I get a lot, and
Yeah.
you said you do as well, yeah. And to me, it's a high.
Yeah.
I get naturally high in my mind, body, and my spirit, and I also feel it's a responsibility.
Mhm.
It's not really an obligation, but it is in the sense that I really keep myself in great form and a blank slate to make sure that I can be available.
Mm.
So that kind of lifestyle is pretty intense. You mentioned earlier in the podcast about sitting back and Netflix, and sometimes you just have to
Yeah.
be like really normal.
Yeah.
And I do weight training to keep me grounded, and I
Uh-huh.
do all sports, and I'm very, very enthusiastic about sports and great health and pursuits. But I think I do all those things to make me feel normal, actually.
Yeah.
And I just started to sit down and watch TV
Yeah.
during COVID. I
Yeah.
learned how to do that. I
Right.
never did that in my life, and I
I know.
just and it's great. It's really, really relaxing. I feel like a normal person.
I know. I'm like, "Ooh, I'm binging a show. Look at me go."
Yeah, exactly. And so it's not it's a gift, and people
Yeah.
say that, but I also don't always accept the gift when they say those compliments, because I want them to realize that they have it too. And
Yeah.
who cares about what levels we are achieving? Even the mediums that don't have the testimonial evidence, who cares? We're delivering good news, good vibrations, good feelings. So seek us out, at any level to maintain awareness or create awareness within yourself of how you can guide yourself through your life if you stay open.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask, so do you receive messages from your own family personally, or do you go get readings?
Yeah, I don't get readings. I did multiple years ago just to understand. I didn't before I was even on the path. I was on a path, but I didn't know
Mhm.
specifically what path. And so I have received readings from random audience situations, I think. So no, I don't specifically go for that. I'm a big meditator, so I feel like I have clear channels to gain guidance for my own direction in life.
Mhm.
Um, and yes, I get signs from them all the time, especially when I ask. The reality is, for me, I forget to ask.
Yeah. I think most of us do. Yeah.
Right. It's self care. You forget about yourself a lot. And I'm like, why not? I know I can get my own reading. Why don't I give myself a reading? And I'm like, I don't know. When I need it, I ask.
Yeah. Well, I'm similar in the sense of I forget to ask, or sometimes I will get readings, one for podcasts and things like that, and two, I find it's almost like a little vacation for me. I just kind of like to show up anonymous somewhere and go, oh, okay, it's like a spa day or something. Like, let me get a reading
Yes.
kind of thing.
Yes.
So I do that, but I had a very interesting, it's a way too long of a story to share here right now, but I moved into a 200-year-old house, and there's a lot of energy here and a lot of suffering
Oh,
souls that were here. And I think I was charged with moving here and buying this house to help heal this space and go into deeper levels of my own healing. And in the process of that, my grandmother came through with the written messages that she had written down 16, 18 years ago before she passed on a card. And some of them were Bible verses and some of them were instructions of things to do. And it fell out and landed in my lap when I was on this quest of what else can I do here? And
wow.
I mean, it's bonkers. In fact, I want to try to write a movie about it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was so, it just reminded me so much of the connection and the love and the support, like you're saying, that we are supported in the most beautiful and what appears to be magical or mystical ways for us. But in reality, it's just what it is. It's just love crossing over a lot of different lines, or not even that many lines, but it's just love. It's just support. And we're all here. And so I was very, I guess, in a new way, I think, because it was so tangible. It was not just her written handwork, but also just the things to do here. It was just so tangible. And I felt like, I don't know, it just reminded me, in a deeper way
Or
of,
that you're being seen.
well, I would still say supported, I think.
Okay.
Just I too feel similarly guided very easily, and not easily sometimes. Sometimes it's a challenge, but I seek
Sure.
guidance internally and so forth. So I feel guided, but I've I do feel like I've needed more support. And when that kind of circumstance happened, I was like, okay, there and things like that have happened before, different at different times, different messages. But this one, because it was so tangible, I was like, okay, they're right here. They are right here. I have so much support. It's crazy. I have
Yes. Yeah.
right. so so I just share that to say, I think that even for people who do the work a lot, people on a spiritual path,
Right.
all of us, to be reminded in big signs, little signs, memories, dreams, recall, meditation. There's so many ways to access the support and the love. And I just want to back up what you said, that I agree. We all have access to that. Yeah.
Yes, I think they're huge reminders
Yeah.
for us too, and that's also why people see synchronicity and signs, or they see 1111. That it distracts their day to know that you're too distracted in your own world, and you need something else to take you out of that because
Yeah.
you're probably plaguing yourself with the things you have to get done and the achievements in life and all of these things. And you're right. Sometimes the signs are so spontaneous. But what also happens is that I've understood through the readings that oftentimes there's soul spirits on the other side that are signing themselves to you
Mm.
for what it is that you're going through in life now. So the fact that is it a great grandmother that you were saying?
No, it was my grandmother.
Your grandmother, okay. So there's reasons why, she's kind of showing up now. Like it
Yeah.
does get kind of personal with the soul sometimes,
Yeah.
and maybe it's the woman who you've heard about or known how she was, or maybe she was truly domesticated, and now you're like in this domesticated situation of
Yeah.
cleansing this house, and maybe some of her old potions and motions work. Like whatever that is about, or you would maybe bake something that she baked in order to bring her energy more there. I mean,
Okay.
these are guidance that you might get for how you're living with her and continuing the relationship that you've had with her that you think
Mhm.
is gone, but it isn't,
Mhm.
because it still can be not only just provoked, but utilized in a way that can keep you together. See, some
Yeah.
people in the grieving process believe that they're so separated that sometimes they continue have to grieve because it's the only thoughts that they have about them.
Right.
When if they would, release some of that, and I'm not talking about like saying you have to grieve less. There's no quality or quantity of time in that, other than the open channel to be able to know that the ones that they are grieving about are really ready and active to be a part of your life moving forward.
Yes.
And so that's probably why she showed up. Maybe you
Well,
needed help, or
yeah,
yeah.
in this particular circumstance, I think it was because it was getting dangerous here, and it was kind of
Oh,
like, yeah, and she had written these things down on a card. I remember when she gave it to me 15, 16, whatever years ago, and she said, "Take this." And I took it, and it was a business card, and I only kept it because it was her handwriting, and I haven't thought about it or seen it in, 20 moves since then. And many, many years, and it fell out right on time. It was that kind of thing. But yes, I agree. It is hard, or not hard, but I think the challenge working with people grieving is, yes, we need to feel what we feel. We need to have our human experience here, and some of that is
yeah.
suffering. And that the people that are removed from us in the physical space, they're not grieving. They may miss us, but they're in a vibrational state of peace and joy and love and compassion and light, right? And they're not,
Yes.
and at least as far as I can tell. Maybe you can tell us differently.
No, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And um, when we talked before about what are they doing on the other side, I believe that their evolvement is sometimes predicated upon our support too, if that makes sense.
Mm,
Because that's where we become, and the word here, this is so, I don't know why this word is coming up, but bilingual.
mm-hmm.
I don't know why that just came out. It maybe means that we can speak the same language in the reception or the understanding that love never dies, and you can maintain your relationship with that person in another way, which is extremely important for grieving parents with a child. And many of them, um, I should say, elevate their consciousness to know that that child is now a guided angel in their life for here forever until they meet again.
Yeah.
And then they have a different relationship with that child. Now, not everybody gets to that place,
Mhm.
but everybody tries to help them get there, even the lost soul or
Yeah.
lost child, you
So
know.
do you frequently see families together and people who know each other together?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very sweet. Sometimes they go by the surname, their last name. So they say, "Oh, it's a tribe," they don't have to all have a call-in sheet. Sometimes they do that. They often describe their time on the other side to a passion that they liked here, whether that was golf or drinking or, smoking or whatever that is, so that they know that that gave them so much pleasure on earth that they are indicating that that is their pleasure mode now. Are they really drinking or dancing? And I don't think so,
Mhm.
but they share that in a way so it's them and that their pleasures are still possible because that's the euphoria that they already have
Mm.
while we're still looking for our happiness, right?
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
a lesson.
So what is your take then on, do people come back? Are the souls reincarnated?
Yeah, it's a profound question, and I do not make claims that I really understand all of that,
Mhm.
but I have had multiple readings where um, they say that, if I know that a baby's coming, that a baby's going to be born because they told me
Mhm.
that some of those that are receiving the reading wanted to be that relative that I'm talking to
Ah.
on the other side, right?
Mhm.
So, well, I always hear these words like a sprinkle of their DNA.
Mhm.
And sometimes, if they're being named after the child's being named after that relative, they know that, they appreciate that. And that is a way of working together and indoctrinating that soul somehow. So it becomes substantial conversation so that you know that their lives are moving on. And you also know that there is evolution to these souls. Um, but I've never taken it further to know if, well, I guess I have. If you, let's say somebody has a firm belief here, this is getting long winded, but I'm just trying to get
Okay.
to the quote unquote end of it. But if somebody here says they feel very strongly that their child is a reincarnated spirit of somebody that they lost a while ago, and then they're trying to get to that reincarnated soul that's on the other side. Are you with me? Because this is
Mhm.
hard to follow.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my experience in that is this, is that you can connect to the consciousness of anybody's life that has been lived that is on the other side. I do firmly believe that. To proclaim that it is exactly the same person and the same soul, I think we want to humanize and egocentrically do that. I don't know that that's entirely true because I also know that we believe in reincarnation and believe that we've had multiple lives. I do too.
Mhm.
I've seen them. So I've had past life regression. So I'm like, okay, so can I connect to that person? So my understanding is that it's part a sprinkling of DNA. It may not be the entirety of the DNA. And I think that makes sense to me
Mhm.
when I look back on my past lives, how they might have been. Well, we do know this because that's creation, isn't it? I never really thought about it yet. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like two
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
come together.
Right.
So that is that.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah, right. That
Yeah.
was simple.
Yeah.
I just answered my own question. That's really funny. Do you understand?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. And I've often thought when people ask me that question, my answer has kind of always been, I believe, instead of the word sprinkle of DNA, that that energy never dies, and that energy um, takes on new form and shape and so forth, and parts of it move on and do something different, perhaps, but it doesn't take away or form the same kind of entity. My dog's about to bark. Sorry. Dylan, we have to cut here, 2:28. That it doesn't mean that it takes on a whole other form itself, and to be, humanized as that entirety of the energy, like it's not traveling here fully and then traveling back there and traveling here and traveling back
Right,
there,
right, right.
but it's the integration of, and the coming together of the energy. I think I'm saying it differently than what you're explaining, but hopefully people listening, if they don't think we're crazy by now,
No, no, no. I know. And to end this wobbly conversation about creation is that, like, what I'm just learning about having this immediate discussion with you is that I think I'm asking why do they use the word sprinkle, and what I got is, this sounds kind of odd, but it is the sprinkling of the cells, like they're like little sprinkles,
yeah,
and so it's a cellular combination that is unique for those that came together in order to incarnate this being. And
yeah,
so I think that's why it's called the sprinkling of DNA.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know. Well, Elaine, I could talk to you forever, but
Yeah. Lovely,
I
lovely
know, it was
conversation. Thank
wonderful.
you.
And I want to remind people, her book is Medium Memoirs. Memoirs. You can get anywhere books are sold. Is that true? Online
Yeah.
books?
And on Amazon is the easiest.
Yeah. Okay, great. And all of her information about her website and so forth will be in our show notes and also on social media. So make sure and follow us there. Thank you so much for your work and for sharing today.
Thank you. I love your podcast. You've had great interviews with people, and I've learned a lot from them. So I really appreciate you creating a platform to share the information.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. That means a lot. Well, I'll be in touch with you soon.
Great. Take care.
Everyone else, have a blessed day.